Let's start with Joe Biden at the top of the hour, who is defending his son Hunter's work on the board of Burisma in a recent interview with Axios. Let's take a look.
What's your understanding of what your son was doing for an extraordinary amount of money?
I don't know what he was doing. I know he was on the board. I found out he was on the board after he was on the board, and that was it. And there's nobody.
Well, you've had a lot of time. Isn't this something you want to get to the bottom of?
No, because I trust my son.
But that doesn't pass the smell test. Like when you're vice president, isn't there a higher standard? Don't you need to know what's happening with your family? Don't you need to put down some guardrails?
Unless there was something that was, there was something on its face that was wrong. There's nothing on its face that was wrong. So look, if you want to talk about problems, let's talk about Trump's family. I mean, come on. This is. These guys are amazing.
So you think that everything that happened was kosher?
There's not one single bit of evidence, not one little tiny bit, to suggest anything done was wrong.
That's not what we're talking about,
what do you think? What do you think of that? What do you think about that, Mika?
There is not any evidence that anything was illegal. That's not the issue.
I mean, at the same time, he has to understand. The press is going to ask these questions, and the incorrect answer is that nobody told me or something like that. I mean, listen, his son was in Ukraine on a board, making money for a job that he wasn't qualified for. When Joe Biden was a senator from Delaware, he was on the board of a bank making money for a job that he wasn't qualified for. When he was in China, he was working with a hedge fund in an area he wasn't qualified for. And Republicans are going to bring this up.
Very different from illegal.
Yes, it is. But it's still, again, for a lot of voters, it's going to cause a problem. It wasn't illegal that Hillary Clinton spoke at Goldman Sachs. It wasn't illegal that it wasn't illegal that Hillary Clinton spoke at state universities, got paid $250,000 for the same universities that she had represented a few years before. All I'm saying is the correct answer for Joe Biden is this. My son's 49 years old. He's almost 50 years old, okay?
Ask him about it.
If you've got I love my son, but if you've got a question about my son, you need to ask my son. I'm focusing on your son, on your daughter, on your family, on your job, on your future. That's because, again,
that's what I'm frustrated about here. But let me show you something, Joe.
He's 50. His son is almost 50 years old.
I know.
It's all right for him to say, I love my son, but you need to talk to my son about it.
Yeah, and from what I know about it, I wouldn't have done it. He could even say that. Meanwhile, Biden said over the weekend that he was not warned by White House aides about a potential conflict of interest involving his son.
It didn't look good for Hunter Biden to be on that board, even if he did nothing wrong. The optics weren't good. And you talk a lot about what it means to be a Biden and the integrity that is imbued in that family name. But there were former White House aides of yours who tried to warn you about the potential conflicts of interest.
Nobody warned me about a potential conflict of interest. Nobody warned me about that. And at the same time,
George Kent, the State Department official, testified that he raised it to you and your staff. To your staff.
He did not.
To your staff.
I
stand corrected.
Never heard that once.
To your staff, and your staff told him he has no bandwidth.
Well, my son was dying.
Matters.
I guess that's why he said it, because my son was on his deathbed. But that's not the reason why they should have told me.
So the New Yorker reported in July that an Obama administration official had warned Biden, writing, quote, in December 2015, as Joe Biden prepared to return to Ukraine, his aides braced for renewed scrutiny of Hunter's relationship with Burisma. Amos Hochstein, the Obama administration's special envoy for energy policy, raised the matter with Biden, but did not go so far as to recommend that Hunter leave the board. Again, Joe, it's nothing illegal. It even was investigated.
Right.
It's the kind of thing, though, that you would say, I wouldn't do it. I don't think it looks good. And that's something you can say to your son.
Yeah, I mean, and let's just, again, let's take a couple steps back. If you or either of your brothers had been in the country getting consulting fees in an area that you weren't qualified to get consulting fees from while your father was doing important diplomatic business there, your father would have known and your father would have dragged you all out of that country. That's just the reality. But at the same time, there was a realness in that answer when he talked about how his son was dying. And he didn't have the bandwidth to handle it. They probably didn't want to go talk to him about it. And again, it's not illegal. I mean, the Trumps do not want to talk
about
the Trumps do not want to talk about children cashing in on last names. They are inside the White House. They are making, millions and millions of dollars off of it, and they have made millions and millions of dollars off of it in the past and even right now. So the Trumps obviously have absolutely no room to talk on this issue.
But my frustration is this should be easier for Joe Biden.
Well,
and by the way, Mike Barnicle wants to get in.
Mike, this is easy. Let me say it again. His son is almost 50 years old. He can say, I love my son. He's an adult. He's almost 50 years old. If you've got a question, you can take it up with Hunter. But listen, from what I know, they hadn't done anything illegal. Now let's talk about the Trumps. That's the answer.
Joe, the bottom line on this is Joe Biden has to come up with a better explanation, a shorter, very succinct explanation. It'd take him about a 1-minute statement to do it because he's going to be hounded by this, over this, every day of the campaign trail. What you've got to factor in on a personal level is how angry he is at the attacks on his son, his family, and the anger is, I think it requires him to spend an enormous amount of energy not to really get angry in public because he's confronted with this nearly every day. And the Trump administration and the Trump people are doing the same thing here with Ukraine and Hunter Biden and Joe Biden that they did with Hillary Clinton's emails. And we in the media are going along with it. I mean, nothing happened
but
here.
Hold on a second. We in the media said when she had that horrific press conference very early on at the United Nations, we in the media said that's not going to cut it. Get your answer. Make it truthful.
Correct.
And get out in front of this. And you know what Hillary Clinton did? Just the opposite. So these people who whine about why the press continued on Hillary Clinton and say, oh, I bet you feel bad about it. No, that's what reporters do. Attacking Mike Schmidt in the New York Times because he did his job, because she never answered it. John Harwood. He needs a 30-second answer. There's a good 30-second answer for this. I mean, he was asked this question in the last debate, the first question, and he stumbled around on it because is there nobody inside the Biden campaign or in the family that can sit him down and say, Joe, I know this is painful, but here's a piece of paper. You need to figure out what the hell you're going to say because it's going to keep being asked, and get your answer and say it and keep it under a minute.
I agree with you. He needs a better answer, and I thought the one you suggested was pretty good. You might have a future in politics.
I doubt it.
But look, but look, it's pretty obvious what happened here. I don't think Hunter Biden did anything on the Burisma board other than sell his name for the Burisma board. That's how influence peddling works. It's a prevalent part of Washington. It is unseemly. That's what happened. There's no evidence that Joe Biden did anything wrong. And as Mike Barnicle was just saying, it's very painful and difficult for him. His son's had struggles over the years. He doesn't want to hurt his son. His other son was dying at the time this came up. I think that's what happened. He has indicated that he thinks it was wrong because he said when he's president, his children will not be able to do that. So you don't prohibit something if there was nothing wrong with it in the first place.
Correct.
But he's had difficulty coming out with it and saying it simply. You're absolutely right about that.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.